how I got here starts early on. I've always been interested in the environment. I have an environmental degree, environmental studies undergrad from the University of San Diego, and I also have a degree in Spanish. And so that made the easy jump of doing Peace Corps post undergrad. So I served in Peace Corps Nicaragua, and I was an environmental science teacher for elementary school. And that was a really great experience. Got my first like real trial by fire teaching experience. And after that, I always knew I wanted to go. I had taken some GIS in undergrad, and I always knew I wanted to go back into like quantitative research, but with the lens of community organizing and the like community-based environmental action. And so I actually came back from Peace Corps and taught Spanish for a year, elementary school Spanish. So that was a fun tangent. And that's when I ended up applying to grad school and went to the Duke Nicholas School of Environmental Duke Nicholas School, something. Sorry, I know I have several of the people who are on this call have also gone to that program. And so I focused on environmental science ecosystems in that program with the GIS certificate. And I also did a community-based environmental management certificate. So staying on that track of community and then also the quantitative analysis. And that all came together to culminate now in the job that I do, which as a GIS analyst, am trying to make mapping tools and data accessibility for communities, specifically EJ communities around a lot of these large polluters, and really tracking the impacts of the oil and gas industry, pipelines, and getting that information out there in an accessible way to community orgs, community members, so they can have ownership of the air and the water and the environment around them. So I'm going to share really quickly in the chat 2 links. This is a big project that we released this year on benzene pollution around refineries and using EPA fence line data, which has been really cool to see the reaction to that. And then another large project that I work on as a data analyst is this oil and gas watch, where we're tracking the expansion of the oil and gas industry across the US in terms of greenhouse gas emissions. So I'll pause there, and I'm really excited to hear the other speakers, and I'm particularly interested in environmental justice. So especially, I don't know if I have as much like natural disaster resiliency background, but very interested in EJ. So that's me.
Thanks so much, Ronnie. That's super interesting to hear how you took all these different sort of pathways and had like, a quick tangent, but how it did ultimately like inform what you're doing now. And love the projects you shared in the chat. Some like tangible examples of what you're up to are so helpful. Great. So I would love to now hear from Teresa.
Hi there, thank you. I'm joining you from the High Line in New York City. I'm a regional manager with New York City Parks, and she and her are my pronouns. And I came to every bit of what I do now through GIS. GIS has exposed me to the world around me and everything I love. First and foremost, New York City, but my journey towards the things I love have always been through GIS, and they've always taken me farther. There's so many different applications for GIS, and it's lovely to see that Ronnie was involved in teaching our children. And like my profile picture is the picture my son drew of me, and so he's in pre-K, and I totally love that GIS quickly explains the environment around us and makes it accessible through cultures, through different languages, through different biases, and really finds a way to make a lot of what we need happen. It really explains the scope quickly and tells you what ideas come forward fastest. And that's what's caused my career to take off. So having met many people throughout my career, they've always given me a little bit of a clue as to where I can expand to within the environmental field I'm in, or whether it's horticulture or tree management or disasters or responding to disasters and making myself available for people in New York City. And just generally in education too, because I'm a part of taking on interns and training them to getting better careers in what they love and what they hope to pursue, so that their energy is really driven and their motivation is there when they're doing the work that they're doing to try and make a difference. So I feel like I'm very holistic, so I'll talk forever if whatever topic you give me. So I don't want to do too much. But my interns are what really make it possible for me to keep my ear on the industry and all of the different types of applications for GIS and all of the different parts of our environment. So I can't wait to hear from all of you about what great stuff is out there, because I think that's the best part of being included in this. I have Ansheen to thank about that, and it's really great to be here. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much for that overview. It's exciting to hear how you use your network to keep on top of things that are developing in like the software and technology space. It's very cool. Okay, I'd love to hear from Ryan now.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Hi everyone, my name is Ryan Lencloss. So my role here at Esri as a software company as the Director of Public Safety Solutions. And so that's a team that is taking the core technology of GIS. Many of you may know it as ArcGIS in many ways that use it for research and work, and then getting it into the market specifically around disaster resilience, climate resilience, and general public safety and security aspects. So the team that I manage focuses in public sector and government agencies, both at the federal level and local level, and then also into private and commercial entities that are using our technology to look at climate resilience and disaster resilience, against supply chain and logistics and all the things they do to run business as well. If you would have asked me like 25 years ago when I first got introduced to GIS, would I ever end up here? I probably would have never even thought that was possible, even knew how to get here, to be honest. I started my introduction to GIS as a technology as an undergrad, and I was doing an internship at the time. And the group that I was with in the program was very much focused on oil and gas. I grew up in the South and I was going to school in Louisiana. And as a geologist, like the natural pathway was to start looking at oil and gas, and mapping was a major part of that. And I remember sitting in my office as an intern, and I was looking at these overlay sheets trying to map these subsurface features and using rulers and pens. I was like, man, there has to be a better way. Like, I like computers, I like technology. It seems like there has to be a better way to do this than just to looking at overlays with Mylar sheets at the time and figure it out. And so I started asking questions around the office that I was working within, and a few people at that time said, hey, you should check out this thing called GIS. It might be interesting to you. It makes maps. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Like, I like maps, growing up as a kid, I was always inquisitive about maps on road trips. And it's like, well, that could be an interesting thing. And so I went back to my professor who was advising me at the time, and I said, hey, I heard about this thing at work called GIS. I'm looking for what's next. And he said, you should ask that. We're actually going to start a GIS class next semester. You should take it and see what you think. And it's funny, like sitting in that class, like I remember taking it, and all we did at the time was literally translate other people's maps into a digital world. Like, we were creating abstractions of what other people had done into a GIS at the time. And it was very focused on cartography and just representing the built environment, the world around us. And naturally, my inquisitive nature, just like looking back at Road Atlas on the road trips I was on, I started asking questions, well, what's on the other edge of that? Like, what happens if we did this or that? And that got me exposed to more about the intelligence, the analytics side of GIS and the science of geography that helps us start asking these questions about maps and data and looking for patterns and interactions. So fast forward out to going into grad school, doing geography and studying GIS and working. I got a phone call at the time from after 9/11. There was a lot of money coming into the community around resilience, and at the time establishing Homeland Security emergency management as a discipline, so lots of funding. And I got a phone call from a colleague who said, hey, you know that GIS thing, and I've got this problem related to supply chain around biosecurity in the case where I was working at the time in Missouri. It was looking at what happens if we were to introduce something into a food lot that then would then proliferate across the United States and take out our food systems and the like. And it seems like a natural place GIS could work. So oddly enough, my entry into where I'm at for resilience started with a state veterinarian who was also inquisitive about data and asking questions related to, in this case, Homeland Security issues that led me into government, onward from there into to work. And I look forward to sharing some more ideas and stories about trends and patterns over the path. But my role now really is taking these incremental steps over time and these opportune moments when things I never thought I would do as an undergrad put me in the position where I am to now of learning about how technology can really be impactful for not just responding to crises and disasters, but more importantly, building resilience, right? Looking at the patterns and things we need to do before the event happens to truly be ready, mitigate those things, adapt to changing climate. So that's me in a nutshell, and that's where I work at the company. I look forward to meeting all of you today, and thank you for joining us. Thanks for the invitation to be here, Avery and team, and yeah, I look forward to catching up.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I feel like it's so interesting to think about how many folks like entered the field, Ryan, like in your case, starting in like oil and gas mapping, and then all the way to Ronnie, which is like kind of the opposite almost of like using mapping to keep track of like pollutants and environmental justice concerns that, I don't know, I feel like it highlights how powerful mapping and data analysis can be to like observe natural resource use, like natural resource exploitation, pollution, all these different things happening in the natural environment that are very hard for us to like observe. So in this moment, I think we are going to move into the Q&A portion of the meeting. So we can stop the recording now, Brianna, is that the move?